Welcome to the Vulnerable Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Almeida. Each week, we'll share the inspiring story of someone who has faced their share of vulnerability and been able to find success and fulfillment. We hope all our stories will help you find the strength within yourself to live the life you want and find success of your own. Wei Lan Yun said, "Courage is vulnerability. Vulnerability is courage. Like shadow and light, neither one can exist without the other." This is episode 16 of the Vulnerable Podcast with Alnoor, Damji. At age 6, his parents sent him to live with his aunt, and at that age he didn't understand why he was being sent away from his family. The consequences of this trauma, and at age 8 suffering sexual abuse, he did not have the tools to establish healthy development, self-confidence, self-regulation, and a pattern for developing other relationships. Years later, he and his family immigrated from Kenya to Alberta, and the cycles of abuse continued. Their sponsor, who happened to be his mom's brother and sister-in-law, continually shamed him. He questioned the emotional, verbal, and physical abuse he endured in his early years in Canada and learned that patterns of abuse continue. All of this left him feeling confused and unsure of what his future could possibly hold for him. It would be many more years of struggling to cope with everything that had happened before he decided to find help. For a man whose name literally translates to the light, it would take years of darkness before he could shine it upon the world. He started by working from the inside out. Through therapy and learning more about how his past had affected him, he began to climb the mountains of his life instead of carrying them. This was the pivot to his transformational change to lose 200 pounds and keeping it off. Over the past 10 years, he has used his background in HR, cognitive behavior therapy to coach organizations and individuals to navigate change by using stories, and is a sought-after speaker at conferences too. He is using his light to publish his first book on job searching using LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get vulnerable with Alnoor, Damji. Hey Alnoor, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. I'm excited for this interview, as I am for all of them. I'm really happy that so many people are so open to sharing their stories, because I really think that what I'm trying to do here with the Vulnerable Podcast and helping people, I think that we can all do our own little bit to help. So thank you again for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this.
Awesome. So the first question I ask every guest is, what is your definition of vulnerability?
You know, I was mulling over that question, and, it's just what it is your openness to share whatever you're going through, whatever you've gone through. And, you're afraid of what people will think. There's so much stigma that goes on with everything from mental illness, mental health, and so many other things that people are afraid to share what they are going through, what they've been through.
No, awesome. I mean, and that's the thing here is that, like, I agree. People definitely are afraid to share, but I think one thing we talked about just before we got started here is that I think it's when you share that you become more relatable with people. And that's something I discovered when I hopped onto LinkedIn, a little over a year ago. I was all worried about people judging me because I had just got let go from my job and all this. And then I found out, there's other people out there that have gone through the same thing, either very recently, before, in the past, whatever. So, but I definitely agree. It's that there is that definitely that feeling of worry and fear that people might not accept what you have to say, and people are afraid to put that out there.
So true. The big thing is you're not alone.
Yeah.
And your story will inspire others.
No, for sure.
Yes, it's just amazing that what you've shared already from
Thank you.
Podcast episode that you shared about yourself. You're inspiring so many others.
Appreciate that. So what would you say is your earliest memory of facing a situation of vulnerability or struggle in your life?
So I am originally from Kenya, East Africa. I came into the family after 17 years. And there was a baby born, and it was a big, big party because, with the Indian population, with the African population, with the Asian population, I'm not sure why, but they love to have, male kids. And so this was a huge thing that, a child was born into the family, male child and all of that. And my aunt, Nurbai, was the one who named me after herself. And she was she dotted me and at that time, my parents lived with my aunt. In those days, lots of family lived together. It was a 3-bedroom condo. It used to be a flat, is what we called it in Kenya. My parents had one end of the place, and my aunt was the other, and my cousin was in the middle, and that's how we all lived. When I was age 5, my parents moved, and I didn't know what was going on in there. But at age 6, I was sent to live with my aunt. And at that time, I didn't know at a young age what I had done, that I was being punished. I was living with my parents and my 2 younger brothers. And later in life, I found out that this is what attachment injury is. It's not that my parents didn't love me. It's not that my aunt didn't do everything for me. But in my mind, I wanted to please people. And at age 8, I was repeatedly abused by a male. And I didn't know, I couldn't say anything. And so I have PTSD, and that carried on until even my adulthood. And we moved to Canada in 1986. I came here almost an adult, and I was an adult, and we were sponsored by my mom's brother. All my life, I had seen male toxic vulnerability. And that is that, you're not allowed to express your emotions. This is how boys act. You are supposed to man up. This is not how you should be doing things. But growing up, I didn't have that sense of security and all of that. And I allowed people to cross boundaries. And these boundaries were crossed when I was 8. The boundaries kept on being crossed when I was being bullied. And after the bullying that happened when I was age 8, I dropped my grades. I was from the top of the class to the bottom of the class. Things like that weren't talked about, like what was going on. How come you're not doing well now? Is there anything we can do to help you? And so to comfort myself, I started eating. And I would eat, and that's where I found love. And coming to Canada, I'll backtrack. Every 3 months, we'd go to Tanzania, where my grandparents, my maternal grandparents lived. My maternal grandfather, he was a tyrant. He was such a bully. Everybody was scared of him. He used to beat people like my grandmother up and my mom and everybody else, right? And so the only thing I saw was this anger, and that is the thing that I resonated is that's what males are. And I did not fit in. And growing up as a teenager, I did not fit in. And just before we got on, just when we got on, I showed you a picture that, came up of the memories, and I shared about that. At that time, I was heavier as well. And I talked about how I tried to fit in, how I was odd. Coming to Canada, I tried to fit in with people. And my mom's brother owned a dry cleaners, and I was supposed to work there maybe 15 hours a day sometimes. And that went, and there was lots of anger, there was lots of bullying and screaming at me. And he would take out his frustrations, saying, "You're fat, I'm phobic of fat." I remember one time I was dropped at the bottom of a hill, and I had to walk up in 2 feet snow. Here I'm from Africa by the equator, which is Canada. Okay? I hated winter, by the way. And the white we saw on the ground was the white sandy beaches. Mombasa has the most beautiful beaches. So anyways, he dropped me at the bottom of the hill. I could not walk. I was lucky that a public bus was passing by. I waved the driver down. He looked at me as though I was crazy walking up when it was snowing still, and there was so much snow on the ground. I got back there and I couldn't say anything. I remember other times when there was so much anger and bullying and all of that. So I went through life thinking that, you know what, this is the way it should be. And the way I comforted myself was food. I reached 380 pounds. And this was in 2010. So talking about adversity, talking about all of those things, those have been things that have been part of my life. And I wasn't doing things right when I couldn't move. And my older son, I had only one at that time. We were vacationing in a tropical place, and he said, "Papa, can you please play with me?" There are all the other papas who are playing, with a ball, and I got up and I couldn't. I took a few steps, and I'm like, I can't do this, and I was feeling very ashamed. I came back to Canada, and at that time, my friend Shabu, who is legally blind, had come back from Tanzania. He had summited Mount Kilimanjaro. This guy mountain bikes, he cooks, he bakes, he line dances. He is a legend. He's unstoppable. And so I asked him, Shabu, why? And he said, I believe I can. So I had to change my mental scripting. I had to change the scripting, and that is hard. I had to start working on this before I started working on my external, my body, and my shell. And I got therapy, and this is something that people say, oh my gosh, you therapy? And that's what people don't understand, that there's nothing wrong with therapy. It is such a beautiful thing because it can help you. And so many people say, well, I'm going to get a book. I'm going to learn how to do this. That's not how things work. Because in a book, you don't have a person who's your accountability partner. You're not giving those milestones where this is where, sure, you can journal. And I'm a big believer in journaling and all of that. But when you are sharing with a expert in mental health, with mental illness and all of that, you are able to pivot. And it doesn't mean that you've done it once, you don't do it again. You keep on getting help if you need it. And people don't go through life like this because that's flatline. We always go through these. We have peaks and valleys. And this is a famous saying of mine, is that I used to carry mountains. Now I hike, I climb mountains because I carried all of that stress and everything. So I started to believe in myself, and I failed forward. I felt, and you know what? I didn't let that stop me because that is how I started to become resilient. I started delivering speeches and all of those around. One of the ones was personality dimensions, which is a Myers-Briggs type of one, where I was meeting leaders of my religious organization. They were all senior leaders of the chair and the board and all of that. And I delivered this, and they were just floored because they were able to understand that being able to understand themselves, they were able to understand others. And from there, I was approached if I would take on cognitive behavior therapy as part of my toolkit. So my background is in human resources, and I've moved on to career, assisting people with their career journeys. So I said, wow, mental health? Yes, I would love that. So I went off and I got trained with Canadian Mental Health Association. This was back in 2014. And I started delivering these 8-week sessions. In 2016, I was appointed as the national lead for the program. And whenever I deliver, I don't only lead the program, but I love to be ground floor where I'm also delivering these sessions, because every time I deliver, I use my toolkit. And so the toolkit with cognitive behavior therapy, every time you use it, you're helping yourself. So with that, I've developed a lot of resilience. I have been sharing a lot of these stories and talking about, you talked about LinkedIn. And yes, it's been such a blessing. This last year, I shared during Mental Health Month, but this year, I decided to really come clean. And the whole month, I delivered videos or posts and articles around mental health, mental illness. And this is what I called it, is for the first third, it was unpacking. I unpacked so many of these things. And yes, people were rushing, oh my God, are you okay? I said, yes, I'm okay. But yet they could not appreciate, and I was not saying all of them, I'm saying a small population and some who were very close to me. The next third of the month, I talked about unlearning, because with my attachment injury, with the PTSD, and with the learning how anger is part of life, I had formed these neural pathways. And the neural pathways were telling me to do things a certain way. And to be able to break those neural pathways, I had to start unlearning. When I decided to unlearn, I became unstoppable. And that was the next third of the month. So unpack, unlearn, unstoppable. And in doing so, there was so much appreciation from the LinkedIn community. I had been asked to deliver, and I'm getting goosebumps, a keynote on this. And sharing the journey is that we're not alone, and there's no shame in this. There have been a few that have not appreciated me coming, and some of them have been mental health experts, and a few family members. And the thing is that all my life, I have been allowing people to walk and cross boundaries. And now, in unlearning those, I am trying very hard. I'm not always successful in saying you are crossing the boundaries. And that has been a piece that has really helped in being able to be. So, talking about the childhood and all of those, yes, I've been very resilient. Going through the abuse in the adult and all the anger and everything, I developed sleep apnea. I remember crossing a busy intersection, fast asleep because I hadn't had REM sleep for 2 years. I started losing my memory. I was in college at that time, and I had no idea what classes I was. I was just a zombie going to these classes, failing these classes because I was falling asleep and being so ashamed that I would be taking do you know those pencils with those nibs that you can press? The sharp lead comes out. I had a Jolt Cola that is twice the caffeine, twice the sugar, a Mars bar. So I was trying to get the sugar rush so it would be away, but that too was not helping. And I would be snoring just before I would be stabbing myself with a pencil, the pain to wake me up, but being utterly exhausted. And people would turn around looking at the back, and my snore would wake me up because I'd be gasping for air. That's what happens with sleep apnea. And leaving the classroom in shame to finally saying no, stepping up and talking to my mom's brother and his wife and saying, no, I'm going to get a sleep apnea machine. And they forbidden me. And I still went ahead, took out a loan. At that time, those machines were about $3,000. I went through being kicked out of college. I got myself well, and I was told, oh, you've stopped snoring, but not seeing that I have a quality of life and I'm not falling asleep. And then I'm getting a bit of my memory back. So going back to college, my GPA was 1.5, and I had to pull that up to get it to 3, which meant getting A's. And to do that, was extremely difficult. But you know what? At the end, I graduated college. I went on to to go to university. And while I was in university, I was working full time, going to university in evenings and weekends. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, I would be at university in evenings. I'd have one day off. Friday was prayers, mosque. I would never take any classes. Saturday morning, university. And I was on Skid Row. I was working full time, but the money was going towards paying rent. And I would be borrowing the textbooks from the library. And I wouldn't have food to eat. So I'd be going to the food bank. Sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of my chai. Thank you for having chai with Alnoor. Going to the food bank, and I'm saying, you know what? I need to figure out something else. So I was going to university. I was working full time, evenings, weekend, and working full time. I decided to put on henna, and henna is typically put on by women in my community. So I did it in Eau Claire Market, which was a really happening area in Calgary, and that is what the memories showed up on Facebook. And I was a laughing stock of so many people in my community. Oh, you're putting on henna. When are you starting waxing? You're going to be doing threading. Oh, is it? And you know what? It got to a point where I was like, whatever, because I was now making money, but I was able to, not the pride, but be able to afford to eat and eat healthy foods. And that shows me that, what? Life can throw so many lemons at you. And, what do you do with those lemons? Is, hey, there's so many other uses for lemons that is not just making lemonade. And that shows that it's being resilient and adversity comes in. That's where um, that's showing that, yes, I am vulnerable. And one more thing, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on. Videos I posted was about, even though I had lost a lot of weight, but back last year, I had lost about 195 pounds. And then I got shoulder injury and I couldn't work out and everything. And slowly my weight started creeping back up. And in May, I was in the shower, I got out and I had by now put on 15 pounds, I think. And I looked in the mirror coming out and I said, "You're fat." And it was like, I was just disgusted. And so these scripting of being called fat in childhood, by being bullied, by in my adult life, by my mom's brother saying, "You're fat, I'm phobic of fat," leaving me at the bottom of the hill, and his wife making me drink this soup for breakfast, lunch, supper, which was called the General Hospital Soup Diet, which was green peppers, cabbage, and celery, and no salt and pepper, because there was no sugar in this, and that's what I had to eat. It was cruel because you don't get any nutrients from that at all, anyways. Just to try and make me lose the weight. To having undergone this change, but still calling myself those names. And that's what cognitive behavior therapy is, that the things that you hear on the outside by people who you've respected, it could have been your parents, it could have been teachers, it could have been leaders, are the words that get in your mind. And so I had to use positive affirmations that I am clever, and I didn't believe in that, but I had to keep using that. I am valued. I am kind. I am a great speaker. I am a fantastic dancer. Oh, you should see me dance. At that weight, I could move. Telling me to walk, I couldn't walk, but it is using those and starting that journey of you know of unlearning those habits. That is where I've seen the success. And now I'm back on the journey of losing the weight the healthy way. Being a pesco vegetarian, I don't eat any meat. I've been pesco vegetarian 29 years. And so using lentils, legumes, quinoa, hemp seeds, and all of that. And that's what I show people. It can be done. It's not that you can't do this. And that has been my vulnerability journey, and showing that, what, men are, it's okay for us to cry. It's good to cry. It's, oh, we too have those, and it's not just women that say that have the body image issues. Well, so many organizations have caught on to that, but still there's that stigma. Look at the amount of men products out there for grooming and everything like that. And that is a huge market. That's a huge niche. But why are people not talking about that? So here I am. Thank you for allowing me to bring my voice to share that we are here. We have gone through these and we are all right. I'm imperfect, but I'm all right. Thanks, Brené Brown. You're a rock star.
No, and thank you for sharing all that. I mean, I think you skipped from question 2 to 9 in that entire story, because usually, there's sort of more of a way that I follow, but each podcast is going to be different, and that's totally fine. And again, I think that was an incredible share of from where you came from to where you're at now. So just to sort of jump back a little bit, in those years of bullying and the abuse and the things that happened, how would you say you eventually overcame that? Like, what tools, what things did you use? Was it friends? Was it, aside from the therapy and things that you mentioned, what other things did you do to help yourself overcome and get through these situations?
Brilliant question. And as I share that you're not alone in there. So when I talked about my abuse to somebody in my mosque, he goes, "Oh, that could never have happened." And I said, "It did. It happened in Kenya." "Oh, yes, it happens there." Meanwhile, he's from Africa. So it's right away shifting that it is there. So it's okay if people don't buy your story. You need to move on. You need to find a tribe that is going to be your rock, your circle, and including them in your circle is going to be paramount, is going to pivot for you to get out of that. By me sharing on LinkedIn, people are like, you don't share those kind of, this is, well, LinkedIn has evolved. It's no longer your boring resume. It's social media, but it's social media to help you to be able to not only find jobs, to find clients, to find where you can provide your subject matter expertise, but it is a community that is sharing, that is, appreciating you and holding you close to their heart and being there for you. It was just amazing at the outpouring of love I've received on LinkedIn. And even that post that showed up on my Facebook is that I was just skimming through those, and it was just amazing that people said, "You're not odd." That was a photo shoot a Calgary photographer did, um, talking about abuse, and that a word that they resonated with, and we had to wear white. And she put a black eye, digitally photoshopped a black eye with all of the individuals that had been part of this. So, I'd say start with finding a tribe that's going to be there for you, and please seek help. Start journaling. Start journaling and writing a letter to your future self. And this is what I help my clients with: is to say, can you write a letter 6 months ahead? What I'd like you to do is give it to me, and I will mail it to you. Is what steps are you going to be taking right now? So that when you get the letter and read it, you're able to say, yes, I did this. And start journaling, start using positive affirmations. Men don't use that usually. And yes, I'm stereotyping here, because when I have men in the class, I see the eyes roll. When I met with clients one-on-one, I see them just like, oh, God, please stop making us do that. They are not all that do that. This thing works.
Yeah.
It does. And so if you want, I can only open the door because I've been bashed. What have you done for me? Well, I can provide you with the tools. I can open the door. You need to walk in.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, it sounds like community was a big part of helping you overcome a lot of these situations that you've gone through,
Yes,
whether it was your religious community or the LinkedIn community, or any other sort of communities that you involved yourself in. And I
yes,
agree. I think that having people around you, I say something similar, as I'm starting to build out my personal brand, I talk about finding your circle. And
yes,
because, for me, a circle is a closed loop. And so you got to find those people who you're going to stay close to you. There's not going to, there's acquaintances, there's all these people on the outside of that circle, but there's that core group of people that is going to be there for you through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and accept you no
yes.
matter what. And I found that, in the last couple of years as well. So I can definitely agree with you on that point. So
That's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
after you sort of, you overcame these things, you went through all these things, what new strength would you say it helped you discover in yourself? I know you mentioned resilience a few times. I don't know if that's what you would say, or if there's something else another strength that you discovered through going through all this.
I believe in me.
So self-belief, I guess.
Self-belief, having the confidence. And again, um, I need to work at the tools that I have to be able to keep it at that. There are going to be times when life throws you those, uh, wrenches, and you will start to go down. But it's learning to lean in, and it's to say, yes, I'm going down the rabbit hole. And what can I do to get out of that rabbit hole? That door has been opened. I too have to walk in.
Interesting way of looking at it for sure. So
Right?
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense in terms of like, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've worked with other coaches and stuff like that, and there are times that in where I'm looking at them like, like they're crazy or thinking, like, what are you talking about? Or they're giving me a tool and then, they'll reach back out to me in a few weeks and they'll say, how are things going? And I'll give them some excuse. And when at the end of the day, the real reason that things haven't worked out or whatever is because I maybe haven't done the work or used the tools. So I couldn't
Yes.
agree more. The next thing I was going to ask, but I think you've already pretty much covered it, and I mean, I think I could answer it for you, but I'll let you anyways. Is I like to ask people like, when you were to look back at everything that you've gone through, would you say you faced, a lot of vulnerability, a little bit of vulnerability, a moderate amount? I mean, like I said, I think I can answer this question for you, but how would you sort of pose it? How would you say that, would you say you faced a lot, a little, somewhere in between?
A lot.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to say.
And
So.
so, you hit on a key point there is that the community has been wonderful. And so, in believing myself, I've even grown in the last few months. And I, would like to share something else with you as is that I am almost done writing a book. And this book is for job seekers uh, using LinkedIn. And I'm just surrounded by a fantastic community. I've already spoken to 5 individuals who are going to be contributing 500 words or so to the book, speaking about how I have different chapters, and they are the top third is very important of your LinkedIn profile. Somebody's going to be writing about that, about the name piece. Somebody's talking about followers. Somebody's going to be talking about content creation. Somebody's going to be talking about the about section and all of those. And they're going to be. I wouldn't have been able to do this had I not gone on this journey of um, learning that I need to grow as well. So I didn't need to go through life. I needed to grow through life. And that is where I am so appreciative for appreciative of the community that have been, behind me, behind my back, and
No,
helping.
definitely. I mean, I can, from my experience, and I don't want to speak for you, but from my experience, even just growing that community, putting yourself out there on LinkedIn, I think just speaking of that in particular is definitely something that's a little more vulnerable for a lot of people because, like you said a few minutes ago, it was always known as this sort of place to put your resume digitally and find a job. And now it's become a little bit more than that. It's become more of a social platform and it's allowing
Correct.
people to show more of who they are. And sure, it might
Yes.
still help you find a job, but there's also that vulnerability in putting yourself out there, or even just reaching out to people. I mean, I can imagine even just trying to choose the few people that you wanted to contribute probably wasn't that easy, and also just wondering if they would. There's
Hmm.
those sort of things.
Oh my
It's
gosh, yes.
same thing with starting this podcast. I mean, I really didn't know if I was going to reach out to people. I had sort of stepped away from LinkedIn and from social media for almost a year before I
Yeah.
decided to start this. And I thought, I'm going to reach out to these people and they're going to be like, I don't know, like I haven't really seen him in a while. What's he really doing? Do I really
Yeah.
believe in what he's doing?
Exactly.
But it was the complete opposite. So, I mean, a lot of times I think that what goes on in our head, as you spoke about, is not necessarily the truth. It's just what we're telling ourselves. And once we sort of move
Hmm.
past that, or walk through that door, as you said, is where we realize it's not all that bad. And you can probably do more than what we give ourselves credit for.
Yes.
So all these things that you've gone through and from a young age all the way up till now, how would you say all of it has helped you get to where you are now as a coach, as in writing this book? How would you say everything you've gone through has helped you?
Well, certainly it's that the it's saying I always find that if a coach has not gone through any adversity, they are not really able to speak about it. And so sometimes people go like, I don't want to see a coach who has had those issues. And I'm saying, you know what, that certainly is your choice. The thing is that once once clients share some deep dark things that have gone on in their lives, I can empathize, and I can be there as somebody who's going to help to walk with them in their journey. I have I have had job loss. I've been through job search. I can walk with my clients in their journey. I've faced adversity. I can walk with my clients in their journey. And I do have the toolkits with my background of my education in human resources and industrial relations, and then moving to managing three organizations, their human resources department. I've also worked with the municipal department, municipality government in Calgary in their human resources department. And so using those experiences, I went on into career advising and have won 3 awards, 2 with the Chamber of Commerce for professional service and 1 with the Alberta Career Development Association for the work that I do. So, it's taking all the education, taking my life experiences and packaging that up to help individuals, bringing light to their career and life journeys is what I love to do.
So the one point I want to really pull from that is when you spoke about empathy. I've been doing a lot of learning on meditation, happiness, whatever you might, whatever, a lot of different things, a lot of books that I've been reading on self-help and sort of mental health and everything. And empathy is one of the things that I continuously see. So I think that is one thing that I can definitely say that I would agree with you is going to help a lot of people in a lot of different situations. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I can see how, again, like you said, all those things that you've been through help you be more empathetic with other people's struggles. And again, I think that empathy could help us all out a lot in terms of, having less judgment for people and the things that they may have gone through, because I think we all just try and sort of point fingers and not really get to know what that person's really maybe going through. So again,
Yes,
a great point there. So at this
thank you.
point in your life, would you say that you found success and fulfillment or that you're still on your journey towards it?
So I have summited a mountain and I found that there's another mountain I need to climb.
So still on your journey.
You know what? And so I had used this in my LinkedIn tagline is I'm a WIP. I'm a work in progress because we can never stop learning. And I was, in my own head thinking, oh, yay, I'm going to be going to China to teach. I did that back in 2000. And the thing is, I went there to learn.
Hmm.
It was just an amazing experience of being able to um, share and provide tools for individuals wanting to improve their conversational English. And then I was being approached by organizations to do recruitment for them because of my HR, taking HR, and also holding these training sessions for engineers. So it was just such an amazing experience that, we think that, oh, we're there, but we are not there. That is the humbling thing, is to know that it's okay to say I have failed. And what are the learnings from that? How can I take that and move forward?
No, there's a quote that I recently read. I don't know who it came from or if it's just something I heard again, but it was that there's no such thing as failure. There's only learning. And so I
Mhm.
agree with what you're saying there. I mean, in my first episode of the podcast where I tell my story, I talk about, starting my business, and it was a failed business by the end of the first year. But that's not necessarily true. And now that I think about it, maybe I should have reworded it, because although it didn't work out the way that I thought it was, I learned a lot from it, and we ended up pivoting, and now we're going in a different direction. But again, the way I look at it is it failed because we didn't make any money. The original idea sort of, fell over. But again, like we just said, there's no such thing as failing, only learning. And believe me, I learned a lot in terms of just like, managing money, team members, all that kind of stuff. But again, that's, another story for another day. So I'm getting
Exactly.
down to my last few questions. The last one here, there's a ton of stuff that people can take from this episode, a ton of takeaways that they can take, if they were to sit down and listen
Thank
to it
you.
and take notes and everything. And if there were three key takeaways, three things that you could tell people right now, if they're listening to this and they want to finish this episode and they want to start maybe something on their journey or start doing something, what are three key takeaways you could give to people, that they could use to basically, start their journey, or help them through their vulnerabilities?
One is there is so much help that is out there. Reach out and find out from your community, find out from your city what resources are available. There are free resources that are available there. Two, when you get to seek help, remember it is a two-way thing. And if it's not working, you need to find somebody else. Number three is that this is another hashtag that is I have, which is micro steps for massive impact. In my journey of weight loss, I took micro steps. And you need to chunk it down because we get overwhelmed with all of the different things you need to do. There's so many times you need to say no. And as a person who's been abused, it was hard to say no. But one thing my mentor a long time ago told me, oh, no, you don't like to say no. Do you know who you're saying no to? You're saying no to the person looking back in the mirror. And that was like, so start saying yes to yourself. You may hurt people, but in the long run, you let the bird go. If it comes back, it's yours. They come back, they're your true circle, your true tribe. So those are the three things, is that it takes time. Start, take the first step, find out who you can get help from, and keep on working at it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. Take another step, breathe, and look in the mirror. Who be your hero? There go your hero.
Awesome. Awesome. So the last thing isn't so much of a question, but more of an opportunity for my guests to, sort of promote themselves, anything they're up to, whether it's just telling people where to find them on social media or an event, or, like you said, you got a book coming up, whatever it is
Yes,
that you want to promote, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
thank you. Thank you for the space. And thank you for inviting me to be on this podcast and sharing my voice. And my website is www.iamalnoor. Alnoor means the light. So I am the light. And Alnoor is spelled Alnoor. I can be found on LinkedIn. Please do follow my hashtags, hashtag IAMALNOOR, and hashtag chai with Alnoor, CHAI, because I believe in drinking chai with other people. You build a community, and it is because of my community I am where I am today. And I'm so glad to have you as part of my community prime and all of the listeners out there to reach out. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me. I am Alnoor. Twitter is I am Alnoor YYC. Instagram is also I am Alnoor. So all of us, we can unpack, we can unlearn, and you be unstoppable. You.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put those in the show notes when I post the episode. And
Okay.
definitely, it's been great getting to know you. I'm really happy that you shared. Like I said today, I didn't know this much about your story, but now that I do know it, it definitely gives me, not just a different look at people and you in particular, but just that, like I said, we all have a story. And when we put it out there, there's just something that happens. Like I said, whether it's the fact that we find people that can relate, whether it's that it frees us of that weight, as you spoke about. Instead of carrying the mountains, we begin climbing them. So I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all these stories with me. And yeah, thank you again. And we'll talk more soon.
Thanks again.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to the Vulnerable Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps get the word out and means more than you know. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at vulnerable.podcast or on Facebook and LinkedIn by searching Vulnerable Podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at the BE Almeida. That's the BEALMEIDA, or by searching my name on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you know anyone with a great story of going from struggle to success, please let me know, as I would love to interview them for the show. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and see you next week.